recording on just for the hell of it. It's basically it is because of the music. I think more than anything, the music attracts these audiences that go and see it. And generally speaking, when I first became familiar with Kathakali was when I was in India, in Kerala, and I met a guy, the guy on your paper that says Subramanian Iyer. He's actually both Rajagopalan and Iyer are Tamil Brahmins. Okay, and so they're not Kerala people, but they do speak Malayalam. And so they became, especially Iyer, became possessed of and with Kathakali, and did translated a 4-day play series called Nella Charitham. Nella is the name of the king, and Charitham is the stories. And it's probably the most famous of the Kathakali plays. And there are 4 plays in one, but they follow the characters. King Nala and his infatuation with Damayanti. This is all from the Mahabharata. So we've moved away from the Ramayana to the Mahabharata. Yeah, Jason.
Could I make a request, Farley? Sometimes when you say these Indian names, it would help so much if you would type it in chat.
Oh, okay.
Like Nella,
Okay.
Nella Thrintum, or because I'm not quite sure what the exact sounds are. It would really help.
Sure. Okay. We'll start with this. Maybe we won't start with anything. Let's see. You have to assume I can type.
I believe in you.
Thanks. Okay, Nella Charitham, do you see it?
Okay. See, that's nothing like I would have written.
Okay, yeah. Okay, well, I used to do that myself. I used to write all sorts of things and then had to correct it as I went along. Anyway, Nella Charitham is a series of 4 plays. And he, actually, Mr. Iyer sent me copies of the translations as he was doing them. And so I had a chance to read through them and see what was there. And it started because of this particular translation from, with his brother-in-law, Rajagopalan. Neither one of them are theater people. These are all people who are Kathakali mad. They're doing the translation because they're so infatuated with Kathakali. And there have been other translations, and there are other translations. Zirili, of course, worked with individuals in Kerala for his chapter on Kathakali. And there are condensations of certain ones of these plays that are in English. But actually, this is one of the earliest translations into English of Kathakali plays. And basically, if you go to Kerala and try to find translations of things, you can't bop into a bookstore and get them to give you a translation of a play from any one of these art forms. They just don't have, and these things are mostly restricted because publishers are not really interested in publishing stuff that they don't think they're going to sell huge volumes of. So just as they are here, and so you're lucky if you get anything published at all. If you publish in Malayalam, however, in Kerala, you're likely to get some people buying the books or the articles because Malayalam is spoken widely because it's the native language of the people of Kerala. Okay, so I became familiar with these two guys because I was traveling, and this was in the 60s. And I met them, and Mr. Rajagopalan took me to the Kerala Kalamandalam, where I saw Kudiyattam for the first time. So it was a trip that I was doing for some other purpose. And I saw Kudiyattam, and I was infatuated with it. And also I saw Kathakali, and I saw an all-night performance. And I can attest that you almost go deaf after you've spent an all-night performance with Kathakali, because it's loud. It's very loud. And it just rings in your ears constantly. So the next day I had this Kathakali. That's what made me mad, that I was hearing the sounds of the drums and the singing as I was trying to get adjusted to normal life after that experience. It was a performance of the Ramayana. So this is the epic Ramayana. And it was an all-night performance of the Ramayana. So scenes from the Ramayana. And at the very end, I was sitting next to a guy. Ramayana is sort of like a sacred, it's not a sacred book, it's an epic, but it's treated like it's sacred. And so what was, and you've got, yes, Ramayana, the correct spelling. Yes, okay. And this is a story that is told in many different languages in India. So it's not just told in one language, but there is an official Sanskrit version of the Ramayana. That's where the original thing came from. And then it got translated into different languages throughout India, and some of the stories changed along the way. In Kathakali, of course, because it's a performance and there are X number of hours in the day, from about 9 at night to 6 in the morning was this performance. So it was a 9-hour performance. And it had a number of characters from different segments of the story. The guy sitting next to me burst into tears at the end of the story. It was to him, so moving to see the epic and its religious implications retold in an art form that he loved. So he was just beside himself with joy, watching and seeing the performance. I, of course, was wildly curious and taking lots of photographs, and spent little time thinking about, how is it affecting me personally? Which I think is true of a lot of people that go and see Kathakali, that it's more an experience because as an all-night performance, and this was in a proscenium arch theater. This was not done in any kind of special theater. It was done in a proscenium arch theater. It was sponsored by the Kathakali Club of Thrissur, Kerala. Thrissur. Okay, so this is the city Thrissur, and this is where that Shiva temple theater is located, in the city of Thrissur. Thrissur is a very large and culturally active center in Kerala. It's often considered the cultural capital of Kerala. And it's in the middle section of the country. As I said, there's the northern section, which is primarily dominated by Muslims. There's the middle section, which is culturally associated with Kerala. And then there's the southern section, which I would think probably is more Christian oriented. So it all depends on, where you are. I mean, the dominant groups of people in Kerala are Hindu, but you get a very strong Christian presence and a very strong Muslim presence, but they tend to be separated somewhat. Okay, so Kathakali is one of those things that gets into your blood. You can't help yourself. Zarili was like that. He got possessed by Kathakali, and that's why he did his books. He's done several books on Kathakali. And he also, the Kalari Payatu, which is the martial art. I don't know that I can spell that. I think that's roughly it. Kalari Payatu. That's the martial art of Kerala. And that is what they do in the early morning hours when they're doing their exercise thing. And I'm going to show you a exercise thing as seen through the eyes of a French, I think a dancer from Paris. And so the video that I'm going to show you right now is of the exercise in the morning hour, 4 in the morning, starting the exercises at 4. Okay, so I'm going to take you to, we're doing a screen thingy, and hopefully, can you see this, I hope? Yes, yes. There's a lot of repetitious music here too. That's their teacher who's doing this walking. Okay. Questions about that? No questions, no questions. You don't know what to ask, right? This guy, I came into contact with this guy at some point earlier on, and he sent me links to the video. And now they've done a longer video, which is a little more expansive in terms of expressing what the environment of this school is. This was a school for Kathakali in a small town, not one of the major towns, but this school is very major. And so this guy he and a friend of his got hooked up on going to this school for training, Kathakali training. And that's the early morning ritual activity that he experienced. Yes, Robin.
So I'm seeing a lot of similarity, yes, between this and the Kudiyatam, because there was the massage with the feet, which we talked about, right, and the oil and that sort of ritual, and
Yes.
the teacher being the, I mean, so it seems to share a lot of structure. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So actually, that's one of the things that's similar to Kathakali. Kathakali and Kudiyatam share a similar interest in this kind of exercise routine. Not only what you do, but also the time of year you do it in, mostly in the monsoon season. And it's done because of the rain, heavy rains, then everybody's indoors and it's cooler. Actually, Kerala is much cooler at that time, much cooler than North India. And so that's why they do this massage during this period. And they do the breaking the body down, and they sometimes they sort of, the older artists volunteer to do it again because they need to get their bodies in shape for performance. Kathakali, remember, Kathakali is not only, it's very similar in some ways to Kudiyatam in that this kind of training leads you to very long segments of performance in which you're the dominant person, sort of like you, Robin, in this play you're doing. So you're the dominant person, you hold forth, you talk, talk is not as important as action in Kathakali. Kathakali is all about dance. It's a dance drama. So as a dance drama, that means it takes a lot of stamina, physical stamina, because they have to move on the stage a great deal. It doesn't have the same sort of feel of Kudiyatam. Kudiyatam, you feel like you're watching a play or a drama, even if it's only one person. Like monologues, you think of the actor as doing soliloquies or monologues. In Kathakali, you think of the actors as sharing back and forth their feelings for each other, etc. So there's much more action, physical action that goes on. Although there are individual tour de force performances by performers. And this play, Kalyana Saugandika, has one of those tour de forces. It's right after right after his wife, Draupadi, or Panchali as she's called here, right after she leaves the stage, he's left alone on the stage, and it's described here some of the possibilities of embellishing what he sees as he's going from the earth to the heavens to collect the sacred flowers. He has to go through the jungles, and he has to charge through and bang his, and Bhima, or this character, has to carry with him his mace, and with his mace he chops the forest down and is going through the forest, etc. And the wild animals, he impersonates the wild animals going wild from the sound of his mace, banging away at things. And then ultimately he encounters his, what he doesn't recognize as his half-brother, Hanuman, the monkey. And both of them, the father is the wind god. And he sees the monkey, and the monkey has already made up his mind that, oh, this must be Bhima. So he lays down and covers the pathway so that Bhima can't get by him. And Bhima charges him to move out of the way, and he won't do it. So he tries to move Hanuman's tail, the monkey's tail, and he can't, because this is a huge, very strong individual. He doesn't recognize the super strength that this character has. And then ultimately he is made aware that this is his brother. And so then they have a exchange of attitudes, so that he humbly folds his hands in front of his brother, the monkey, and the monkey takes on a kind of huge size. Although he's very old, he stands on the stool and becomes very big. And so there's this wonderful give and take between these two characters. So we've moved from in terms of emotions, we've moved from the rasa of Sringara, love, in the opening segment between Bhima and Draupadi. And he has, and he is one of the 5 Pandava brothers of the Mahabharata. These are the good guys. There are 5 brothers that are good guys. And how did they end up in the forest in the first place? They end up in the forest because their brother Yudhishthira loses out on a dice game that he plays with the evil characters in the play, their cousins. And they are then sent into the forest for 14 years. They have to be in disguise in the forest for 14 years. And so what do they do while they're there? Well, various things. And this is one of those little tiny stories in the Mahabharata about their being in the forest and Panchali seeing a flower and falling in love with that, the smell, etc. And I want some more. And Bhima, who is obliged to get flowers for her because he feels sorry for her having to go into the forest and live a terrible life like the rest of them. And so then by doing this, that relationship is cemented. And so Sringara Rasa dominates that whole relationship between her and him. He, in order to show his power, does things that are vira or masculine, very masculine actions. And then he sends her on her way, and she just by your charming glances, that's all the food I need for this trip. You know, just her looking at him adoringly is all he needs. And so then he goes into this forest and starts doing the vira, or the masculine sort of movements, like chopping down the stuff and going in, and then he gets surprised by the monkey. So we've got a series of little things connected to the rasas, and so everything follows along into the rasa, and especially this section with the elephant, who is its leg is attacked by the boa constrictor that pulls it towards its lair, and the lion or the tiger that hears this pleading of the elephant and jumps on his head and tries to open its skull. So all of that is depicted by this one guy. So that's what makes it so exciting to actually learn to do Kathakali, is because you've got all these myriad of emotions that you can express on stage. And so the person who plays Bhima is clearly the major character in the piece. Now I have an example of the opening segment of this. I could do it now. Would you like to see the opening segment? Okay. Remember one thing. Whenever something starts, this play starts in this very romantic mood, and consequently, it takes a long time for them to go through these emotions at the beginning. The performance is by one of the star players of Kathakali, and that is, his name is Gopi Ashan, or teacher. He was at the Kalamandalam when I was a student there. He was a kid. And he's now a much older kid. He's like me, he's got gray hair. And so, and he was one of the great young generation people whose face was very expressive. So he had a tremendously expressive look. He also was a tall guy and well built. And so he nowadays takes on these great roles. And so this is one of those examples. So we'll see a little of this, and then we'll see some other stuff. All right. But before that, I'm going to show you a kind of little overview of Kathakali from another perspective. Okay, I think this is going to be okay. Okay. So one of the things that I noticed that I'd never seen before, I've never seen an actor actually reach out and touch the other actor like that. I've never seen that on stage before. And so I think that this was something they added to this. Because generally speaking, they have a stylized way of holding each other, but not of doing little special things like pinching somebody or touching somebody. So I think this was probably out of character for this production. But it all depends on what company does. You know, the companies decide these things. There are a lot of companies of Kathakali actors in Kerala. Kathakali is one of those art forms that you can make money at. It's not like Kudiyattam. Lots of people want to see Kathakali. The communists hire the Kathakali troops to have big organizational meetings at the Communist Party because they know it'll pull people out of the woodwork to come and see Kathakali. Even though this is a religious story, the Communist Party invests its interests in Kathakali. Some families own Kathakali troops. They have the whole troop lives at their house. All the drummers, all the actors, et cetera, et cetera. The fertilizer company in Kerala owns a Kathakali company. And they live at the company headquarters where the fertilizer's done. Wait, sounds strange, but it's true. And so you get the Kerala Kalamandalam with its own company of Kathakali actors. In Margi in Trivandrum, the capital city of Kerala, you get a Kathakali company at the Margi Center. They also teach and perform Kudiyatam at the Margi Center. But this is one of those few cases where you get an interface between Kathakali and Kudiyatam. And then I don't know how many actual companies are actually in Kerala today. I haven't really done any kind of looking into that matter, but I suspect that there are certainly more than there are Kudiyatam groups. And remember, Kudiyatam more centers on one person, the teacher, and the teacher with his students. And there are relatively few of those people. So as I said, there are about maybe 23 living students and professors today who do Kudiyatam. There's not a huge number. It's not like they're much smaller than our undergraduate population here in theater. Kathakali is another matter. Kids want to become Kathakali performers because they can make money. And their parents know they can make money. And so they farm them out when they're very young kids to come and work at these companies. That doesn't mean that a person who goes in can play every role, because basically you're evaluated on the basis of your physical size and your memory, your ability to remember large quantities of information, and your ability to go through the rigor of these training programs, which if you get starting at 4 in the morning, you got to be somebody who can deal with that. You know, if we started our work at 4 in the morning here, we probably wouldn't get a lot of students doing it. Maybe we would, I don't know. So basically what you get with Kathakali is this magnetism of the art form pulling you in. It is also, people go to the Kathakali to listen to the music. That's what they go for. And because you've got singers. And the plays are divided in, and these are plays written for Kathakali. These are not written not for Kathakali, they're written for Kathakali. Whereas with Kudiyatam, you have the plays written by kings and others that are not necessarily designed to be performed by Kudiyatam people. The Kudiyatam has made a way for itself by doing the plays in the fashion in which they do them. The Kathakali people started writing plays. These was written by there was a Maharaja who wrote Kathakali plays and who is responsible. This Kathakali play that you see here, Kalyana Saugandhika, the flower, is actually written in Sanskrit by a Sanskrit writer, Nilakantha. Nila meaning black. Nilakantha. Nilakantha. And it was done and is still done in Kudiyatam. But it was adapted by the Kathakali artists and done in the fashion in which you see in this script as a performance for dance, as a dance drama. So this went through some stages of development to make it into the Kathakali play that it is today. And this is probably one of the most famous of the Kathakali plays. Now I'm going to switch over and play a bit of this piece that we saw. Let's see if I can get it in here. Hello. All right, now we're going to do, where are we? Okay, this is performed at some sort of function. So you see the heads of the people who are sitting there watching, sitting on Western stools or chairs, close to the oil lamp at the place where the performers are doing their action. And this is obviously filmed by somebody who is just sort of doing because he was interested in this, he wanted to do a film of this piece. And it's performed by Gopi, G-O-P-I. Gopi means, is another name for Lord Krishna. Gopi, the shepherd. Okay, so this is the beginning before the entrance of these two characters at the opening of this play. There's the shloka that's sung in the background at the beginning before the curtain is pulled aside. And that shloka is sung in order to allow the actors to do their worship to the various musical instruments and the stage itself before they actually present themselves in front of the public. And they're presented in a sort of like a, how shall I say, sort of like a statuette group together, the two of them embraced. So here we go a bit. So these shlokas often are very, they seem like very long, but they are the narrative, establishing the narrative before we get into the heart of the pada, and the pada is the place where they start dancing. But you're not going to see dance immediately here. And if you listen carefully, you can hear all the audience talking wildly around. There's tea stalls, there are kids running around. This is a noisy place. So the closer you get to the artists, and they always use amplification, microphones and amplification nowadays. So this is Bhima and Panchali at the beginning of the Kalyana Sagandika. Mind you, this is a boy playing the girl. They're slowly moving downstage. Now we begin the pada. Okay, the singers are often considered, they're as big a name as the chief performer. So basically, what you have are the first singer, second singer, the one you see here in the background. He is the one who leads the singing. The second guy then sings the same sort of verse over again. So this extends the verses. And then the actor performs and demonstrates what they are singing about. Okay, it doesn't follow exactly like it does in Kudiyatam. In Kudiyatam, when they say comma, that's what they say. If they're going to say comma, you get that, or you know that this gesture means comma. This guy is only demonstrating his expression of love towards her without doing any kind of gestures. He does it through his eyes and face, which is very hard for people at the back of the house to see. So this makes Kathakali, the reason people are so enthusiastic is they sit on the floor usually in these places and look up towards the actor. So that makes the actor look bigger than life, especially if they're closer to the stage and looking from below. The women would be sitting to your right side. Women would sit together, the men will sit together on the left side. Foreigners can have men and women sitting together on one side, mostly on the men's side. But seeing it from this side on the left is really crucial. So the left of the oil lamp is where you should be watching to see the performance, because the male characters sit on the left or stand on the left generally. The dominant character is the one on the left. The secondary character is the one on the right. Okay, now I'm going to just zip a little down. This goes on. It takes a while to get through this. And this is just him expressing his affection for her. She hasn't seen the flower yet. Okay, now I think she's doing her bit. The kusuma means the smell of the flower. So I think you could say that as you're watching this, that finally you're seeing some dance. And you're seeing her doing the dancing. He's not dancing per se. He's doing his gesture language, expressing his affection for her, but he's not doing any dancing. It's not until we get a little further on that we get him doing some physical movement. Okay, and she gets worried about whether he's got anything to eat on his trip. And she says that she would give him a food packet, and he says, no need for that. Your looks are just what I need. And then he goes into this elaborate dance. So he's tearing and cutting through the undergrowth. And he's portraying the elephant tearing off things and eating them. Okay, this is the sign for the snake. So the snake that's going to attack the elephant. That's a sign for elephant. The one that's got the hand up like this. It's the elephant sign. And so the elephant's having trouble pulling away from the snake. So you get the snake being more powerful in this instance. And then he's saying, just look, there's something else up there. There's one tiger. Trying to open the skull of the elephant. That's blood. He's now drinking the blood of the skull of the elephant. The elephant's getting weaker and weaker. Okay, so now he's going to continue on his journey into the forest. So he's told you a little story, a sept story here. Now he's going to get in touch with Hanuman. This whole piece is 4 hours long, incidentally. It's convenient to have this curtain that can separate one scene from another, which is what they always use to do that. One thing you may be asking, what is all this stuff in the back on the back wall? Actually, it's the name of the company or the organizers who have sponsored the show. So they just simply, without reference to any kind of taste, they've decided that this is okay to do because it advertises what they do, and they can then maybe get some bookings. I saw a production once on this on a stage like this, in which they had painted. This was for another production of a factory scene, and they had factory smoke and smoke billowing out the top of the thing, and they did the performance right in front of that. Had nothing to do with the content of their Kathakali show. It just was okay. You know, they don't think about moving that stuff out of the way or getting rid of it. And in any case, they probably couldn't do it. They wouldn't probably be permitted to do it. So one thing to notice here is that the musicians stand upstage left. The two musicians, there's actually a, what shall I say? It's you hear it in the background. It's actually a tonal thing that they sustain so that the voices can hear and know that it's on a C or a D or E, whatever the sound might be, in order that they can keep coming back to that sound. It's similar to what they have in North Indian classical music and South Indian classical music. It's a in those forms, they often use a tall instrument that just simply plays the same old tone over and over again. Or now they have these what are called Shruti boxes, S-R-U-T-I. Shruti is the name of the sound. And they have these little electric boxes they carry around with them. That way they don't have to carry another actor with them, another person with them. So they just turn that on whatever the C or C minor or whatever they're going to do, and it keeps humming in the background, and the singers can then catch hold of that. The chenda that you see here, closer to the curtain, this stick drum, very popular in Kudiyatam, in Kathakali, not used at all in Kudiyatam. Is a very popular instrument, C-H-E-N-D-A, chenda, C-H-E-N-D-A. And it's the stick drum and is held around the waist. And you can see the mudlam, M-A-D-D-A-L-A-M, mudlam on the left, M-A-D-D-A-L-A-M, is the drum that's struck while the drummer is playing, and he's got these little things on his fingers so they don't break the skin because he hits this damn head very hard. And therefore, in order to get these little things on his fingers, essentially you have to stay up all night and you have to keep wrapping things around your fingers till it dries. And then you keep doing that the entire night. And then you've got these things to use for whenever you're going to use them in a performance. Okay, so it's the mudlam and the chenda. Remember, these are the Kathakali drums. And there's a elatalam, and kuritalam. One is a gong thing that's held this way, and the other one are the cymbals that are played this way. So you've got this, and you got that. Okay, and those are done by the singers. Sometimes they get the idakya drum that you see in Kudiyatam, I-D-D-A-K-Y-A, I think. Don't ask me to spell it. I'll find a way to tell you. Okay, so here we have a transition to the next scene of the play, and which is the monkey introducing the Monkey Hanuman. And this is the figure of Hanuman in Kathakali, very similar to Kudiyatam Hanuman. And Hanuman, as you remember, is the monkey. That's real silver hanging from his headdress. So Hanuman's trying to concentrate on his meditation, and he hears these sounds coming from the forest, the banging around of the vegetation, and it wakes him up. This is the gesture for shaking. And he's listening. And so what happens is he gets up and starts his dancing and trying to decide what he's going to do about all this noise. So he's standing on the stool, performing on the stool, as though he were at the top of the mountain, looking down. And okay, this goes on and 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 on. We're into the third hour, incidentally. Okay, Bhima comes in and sees Hanuman lying across the pathway, and he doesn't recognize him. So then he says, what's he going to do? Well, he charges the monkey to move out of the way, but the monkey doesn't do it. So he's going to have to reach down there and pick up his ugly tail. Now, I'm too weak to move. You move my tail yourself, he tells Bhima. And Bhima dances and then finally stoops down to do something about the tail. So he must be a superhuman being that is so strong, that's why I can't move him. And Bhima, or Hanuman, jumps up and says, I'm your brother. And he's going to show his, he gets on the stool again to show his universal form. Because Hanuman in India is worshipped as a god. And Bhima's overcome that he didn't recognize his own brother. And Hanuman forgives him. And then blesses him and sends him on his way. We're now into the fourth hour. He's saying, may you get many flowers when you go to heaven. And picking the flowers and putting them in the basket like we did the other day. Incidentally, they, at one point in time, they used to have microphones at the back of the house, and a person would be charged to then translate what was going on stage because the audience couldn't understand it. So just like I'm doing this to you, they did it for their audiences, even though they spoke Malayalam, etc. So it's in order for you to get an idea of what these gestures mean, that they make that kind of arrangement. And then finally, of course, Bhima leaves the stage, Hanuman, and this is the very end of the piece, and they say goodbye, and Bhima's off, charging down the road to get the flowers. We've changed drummers here. And does this is a shloka and a ritualistic ending to the piece. So asking the blessings of the audience and thanks for them to coming to see the show, et cetera, et cetera. So they often had other characters doing this, but the chief character nowadays does this performance to the audience, thanking them for coming. And so here we are at 4 hours and 11 minutes. And the audience has probably been up and down out of their seats. They've been drinking tea and coffee and smoking on the side. Shannon, they've been smoking. And essentially, this sort of, this is not the whole play. This is not Kalayana Saugandhika. This is only a fragment of that play. But today, they do it, and so they do fragments of things like they do in kabuki nowadays. They do sections, important sections from plays, and put them together into a performance like this. No rehearsals. There are no rehearsals in these shows. They have simply brought their knowledge of the characters to the stage, and they may talk backstage and say, well, let's pick it up here a little faster, a little slower there, but they don't rehearse it. And then they do their performances for the audience. Okay, so that is the end of that. Okay, any questions? Oh, it makes you tired, doesn't it? Any questions? Any questions? Riley, how are you hanging out? I haven't seen you. Show me your face.
Oh, you get thumbs
Oh,
up.
he's got his thumb up. Okay.
I have a quick question, just for clarification. So
Yeah.
this is an all-male form.
This is actually, they were, as Zarelli points out there, they were actually came from the martial art people. They came from the Nairs, N-A-I-R-S, Nairs, meaning the people who served as in the armies of the Rajas, of the kings. And they created this art form and sustained it for years. Nowadays, it's performed by whoever, whatever caste and community these people come from. But generally speaking, it was originally for Nairs. and the Nayars did the performance. Unlike the, this is a separate category of people, and not temple servants or anything like that. These were only people that were associated with the king and his retinue. And that's why they were kept by the court. In the old days, they were kept by the court. The Rajas kept them. And the Rajas, the guy who wrote Kalyana Sauganika was associated with the Raja.
Okay.
Even though it was also done as a kudiyatam, etc. Okay? Any other questions about this? So I invite you to look, if you will, at some of the background stuff that I've put online to take a look at, especially the training at the Kerala Kala Mandalam, especially so you can see the young kids trying to do the stuff that they have to do to become artists. And essentially, this gives you some sense of the sort of magnitude of Kathakali compared to Kudiyatam. Because Kudiyatam is definitely, that's why it was a dying art, because there weren't people doing it. So that's why, in part, the Kudiyatam people decided, in order to sustain this, we better start taking in people who are not our caste, are not members of our caste. And so in the 30s, that's when that started to happen. 30s, 40s, 50, and finally in the 60s, the Kerala Kala Mandalam started the first training institute. So like Kathakali training happened in wherever the company was lodged, essentially. And so the teachers were the chief performers in the company. So these are more like a company of people with a chief performer or several chief performers, usually one that can do the female roles and one the male roles. Bigger guys did the demons. They were you know, grew up, and also the smaller guys did the female roles. So they were just thin and worked out well in that category. Okay, so Kathakali, so take a look and read Zirilli's description, and I'll try to pull something together. Kalari Payatu, I think, is worth taking a look at, because it's the thing that sets them into training, physically training. And these were the Nayars that studied in the Kalari Payatu, studied to be physically fit, just like often people take this sort of thing to become more physically, and also the concentration, memory, and their ability to do things very subtly in performance. But you can see how noisy this is. This is a very noisy art form. Makes lots of noise. They like to hear those cymbals and the drums and the carrying on. And also the conch shell is played at some point, especially at the beginning, with the entrance of major characters who are gods. Okay, we're going to stop a little, unless you have any more questions, we will stop today to get you doing something else. Oh, did I pass? Oh, I went past. I'm sorry about that. Goodbye. See you Thursday.